Welcome to Inside Badger Nation on Madison CW. Now your hosts, Ben Wargle and Phil Dawson.
Welcome into another edition of Inside Badger Nation. Phil Dawson from the Big 1070 and Ben Wargle from BadgerNation.com with you for another big show. And this one, plenty of hoops for you today as the football recruiting season winding down until National Signing Day. We're going to bring you a bunch of hoops, including the Badger basketball recap with Illinois and Indiana. Plus, we'll go one-on-one with Ben Brust, lone senior of the Badger men's basketball squad. Plus, we'll have our email question of the week and dive into some recruiting as well. But Ben, we start with the Badger men's basketball team. Reached a new high, new heights, if you will, when they moved to 16-0 by defeating Illinois last Saturday, and did so, last Wednesday, I should say, and did so in a fashion that was maybe the best game that they played all year long. They were up 50-25 at half. An incredible performance once again from this Badger squad that set the not just modern record, but the all-time record, 100-plus years record for a start in a season to get to that 16-0 mark.
Yeah, biggest win over a ranked team in school history, 25-point margin of victory. And Wisconsin really took over in this game in the first half. You're seeing part of it here, a 20-0 run that really separated Wisconsin from Illinois. That's kind of the one thing that we had been talking about, Phil, with this team is could they dominate a ranked team? And Illinois just had crept into the top 25 for the first time this year, so newly minted in the top 25. Some of the validity of their ranking maybe took a hit a little bit after Illinois lost to Northwestern last weekend, but still a dominant performance at home for Wisconsin, 16-0 at that point, and they got production from a lot of different players on this run. This is the same type of balance that we had been seeing. This was Wisconsin's most points in a regulation Big Ten game since '97, I believe. So certainly this offense on the uptick this year, and that's what makes this team so dangerous. Anyone can score from anywhere, especially among the five stars on the floor.
Yeah, and we also saw, too, that late in this game, saw some of the younger players that may end up participating or needing to play, came on the floor for a little bit, such as Vito Brown, Jordan Hill. Saw some late action for them. Also, it maybe exposed one more flaw that we've seen from this team, the rebounding again. And it was definitely the issue, what was talked about this team, and there's Evan Anderson hitting a three, that this team on their boards needed to be better following this game. That was the thing that they focused on, would have to bring to Bloomington if they were going to win, especially against an Indiana team that when the game got underway, they were the best rebounding team in all of the Big Ten on the offensive glass and second in defensive glass. And so after this game, that's what the story was. And now they were also 16-0. They were also the third-ranked team in the land. And then they go to Bloomington, Indiana to face a Hoosiers team that they've also owned, but not on that night. 75-72 your final, a three-point game. The Badgers did have a final possession to tie this one up where they didn't get the bucket to go. But for this one, Ben, never have I seen such porous defense by the Wisconsin men's basketball team. It's been quite a while since the defense was so bad.
Yeah, we talk about Illinois was their best performance probably of the season to that point, and now obviously this Indiana game was obviously their worst performance this season at this point because it's your first loss of the season. And Phil, we had talked about, you mentioned the offensive rebounding and the second chance points in the Iowa and Illinois game. 41 offensive rebounds for those two teams that turned to 41 second chance points. Indiana was averaging 14.7 offensive rebounds a game, and that wasn't the issue. Illinois just had 11 offensive rebounds that they converted to 6 second chance points. Part of the reason, though, that their rebounding numbers were so low was because they made everything in the paint. Indiana, 52 points in the paint of their 75. That's close to 70% of their points they scored in the paint. And Wisconsin, you look at the numbers, Wisconsin you think would have won this game. 5 players in double figures. They shoot 53% from the floor. Just really only 10 turnovers. Indiana only 2 points off turnovers. But Wisconsin, for whatever reason, just did not convert in the paint defensively. Indiana did some different things. Late in the second half, Wisconsin went up 52-42, and Indiana a 12-0 run that really took that game over. And Wisconsin, after that run, never was able to get their lead back.
Yeah, they were up 10 points at the 13-minute mark. Then they missed their next 6 shots. 5 of those were 3-point attempts. It was 6 empty possessions. There's that 12-0 run for Indiana. But again, now I want to bring up this fact that you saw Yogi Ferrell score 25 points in that game against Indiana. You saw Kiefer Sykes, another quick point guard, go off for 30-plus against the Badgers. Maybe even Troy Huff, who is a fast, quick type player, going to the basket, going to the basket, going to the basket. Are those players giving the Badgers some problems? And if they are, it only gets worse from here. You take on a Michigan State team that has a Keith Appling, a Gary Harris, a Brandon Dawson. Those are some dangerous opponents that do a lot of the same things.
It's funny you mentioned Kiefer Sykes from Green Bay, because Josh Gosser earlier in the week mentioned that Yogi Ferrell reminded him a lot of Sykes, who scored 30-plus in a road game for Wisconsin up in Green Bay. Wisconsin was able to sneak out of that game with a 3-point win, but Ferrell just continued to drive the paint. Even said that, as Indiana was going through their tempo, they wanted to get a shot in the first 5 to 7 seconds. They wanted to push Wisconsin. They noticed that Wisconsin wasn't doing a lot of help defense, and that's an adjustment Wisconsin has to make, because like you mentioned, Phil, a lot more athletic teams up on the schedule starting this weekend with Michigan.
All right, the Badgers going to lose just Ben Bruss this year. Who could potentially be coming into the next few? We'll talk about it next. Badger recruiting coming your way right here on Inside Badger Nation. Welcome back to Inside Badger Nation. Been talking a lot of Badger hoops this week and the next coming weeks. And how about the future of Badger basketball? It's what we do best here when we're talking recruiting, and the Badger basketball recruiting classes going to be a little, at least for this next year. You lose Ben Bruss, the lone scholarship senior. Also Zach Bohannon, a senior as well, will be moving on. And what's next for the Badgers? We're going to take a look at that right now. Because, Ben, you may be losing some guard play, but what this team is looking at, some big boys?
Yeah, 2015 is going to be a big recruiting class for Wisconsin. You're going to lose, guys like Trayvon Jackson. You're going to lose a number of, Evan Anderson's on scholarship, Douye Ducon. And so you want to get some more depth inside. These are all 2015 kids we're going to be talking about. Josh Sharma was the first one. A 7-foot center already holds a handful of offers from Boston College, Connecticut, Davidson, Illinois, Kansas State, Maryland, a number of schools. 4-star prospect, ranks the number 16th center in the country by Scout.com. Already is hearing from Indiana, Florida, and Gonzaga as well. He was offered following Wisconsin's game against Iowa 2 Sundays ago, and said he really enjoyed the atmosphere of the Wisconsin campus, hanging out with the UW players, learning more about the program. He said the atmosphere, despite an arena kind of distraught over the Packers loss, was still a lot of energy and a lot of excitement in that arena. You could just tell his work around the basket for his age is fluent. Some athleticism too, going between the legs. And like I said, a tall, athletic player. He has the ability to block shots, ability to run the floor, and can shoot from the outside. And the latter of which is perfect for what Bo Ryan likes out of his big men. He's learning how to play with his back to the basket. That's the one thing probably that he needs to improve the most between now and going to college. Probably being a little bit more physical in the low post, adding some strength. He plans to make his decision after the season. It could come sooner, but Wisconsin certainly made a very favorable impression with this kid. And as you can see, a lot of athleticism that he brings to the table.
Yeah, a whole ton of dunks, jams, and blocks. Gotta like that. Meanwhile, a little bit closer to home, we have a different 7-footer. We're talking about Diamond Stone, who's been one of the top recruits since his sophomore year, maybe freshman year. Seeing Diamond Stone, here he is, 6'10", 235, a kid that's still growing big, and definitely one on the radar of the Badgers.
Yeah, the creme de la creme, basically, in the country is Diamond Stone. By the start of his sophomore year, Wisconsin, Marquette, Indiana, Georgetown, UConn, UCLA, Texas A&M, all these schools had offered him. He became our Scout.com's top-rated sophomore, and he's been a mainstay for a long, long period of time. On the court, continues to demonstrate impressive post offense. I mean, you look at just what he's able to do, run the floor, athletic, just his footwork for his age is highly refined, delivers via turnaround jump shot hooks, and of course the dunks, as you can see. He's tall, he's solidly built, and he projects long-term as a power low block scorer. Really, he's just got a great scoring touch and great just innate sense to block shots and alter shots. And he could step out, hit that 12 to 15 foot shot. His range will expand over time. His athleticism can get a lot better, and he needs to improve his release point a little bit, because as you can see, most of his work is just down the paint, 4 feet in. But that's really going to improve. Solid physique. He's long, effective shot blocker. That's going to carry over for the remainder of his career. He's going to be an impressive player wherever he lands. It'll be interesting to see where exactly he goes Very quiet with his recruitment, doesn't talk a lot about his recruitment, but imagine this spring and into the summer, he's going to start to try to maybe narrow down his list of where he wants to go to college.
Yeah, and certainly seeing in those highlights just how big of a body he has, even compared to what we saw from Sharma, just a little more physically built and still doing some of the same things that we saw from Sharma. Next, another big man. How about another big guy in Henry Ellenson, 6'9", 250, another Wisconsin product as well from Rice Lake.
Good bloodlines in this family. Henry's older brother Wally got recruited to Minnesota. His second oldest brother Elwood committed to Bemidji State, but Henry's the biggest prospect of the group. Arizona State, Baylor, Creighton, DePaul, Georgetown, Iowa, Marquette, Minnesota, Oklahoma State, all have offered this kid, including Wisconsin. He averaged 21.5 points per game last season for Rice Lake up in the northwest part of the state, helping lead his team to a 21-5 record. He played AAU basketball this past year in Denver, Atlanta, Chicago, Minneapolis, Las Vegas, a number of places throughout the circuit that made a lot of different coaching staffs view him and get a lot more interest. Main focus, he told me, was improve his dribbling, play a little bit more up-tempo, work up and down the court, just kind of improve his all-around game. His passing, as you can see, spot on. Bo Ryan really, really likes this kid. So does Greg Gard. They've watched him play a number of times. No timetable for his decision, but a very talented player that could fit in well with what Wisconsin likes to do.
Yeah, they like to have those guys that can go inside out and be a complete valuable player to the team, both ends and doing everything. How about our last look here at Jarvis Johnson, a point guard?
Yeah, Jarvis Johnson, as you can see from Minneapolis, Wisconsin's had a lot of success in Minneapolis, so it's not a surprise that the schools that recruit that area, Creighton, Iowa State, Minnesota, have all offered him along with Wisconsin. Johnson impressed Greg Gard very early on, and Gard's pulled a number of really good kids from that area: Bergeron, Bruzewitz, Jordan Taylor. Johnson actually used to play basketball with Jordan Taylor, another talented guard, who's obviously did some really good things with the Badgers. Johnson also has an aunt that went to Wisconsin that has told him about the city and the program. Johnson's been down here a couple times, likes what he sees with the campus. Although he's ranked as the number 10 point guard in the country, Johnson told me he's looking to make larger strides in his games, getting out in transition, getting to the basketball open, being a better on-the-ball defender. So this is a very talented player that could do a lot of really good things at whatever program he chooses.
From one talented guard to the next, we're going to go one-on-one with Badger senior Ben Brust when we're back on IBN. Badger men's basketball has been off to a great start, and they take on Michigan on Saturday at the Kohl Center. The last time the Wolverines were in town, how about a big buzzer beater for Ben Brust? Our Ben Wargel was on scene with Brust, talking about that and more as we go one-on-one with Ben Brust here on IBN.
It's February 9, 2013, and number 3 Michigan looked poised to steal a win away from Wisconsin here at the Kohl Center. Tim Hardaway Jr., one of the Wolverines' best players, hit a contested three-pointer right in front of Mike Bruzewitz with just seconds remaining, putting Michigan up 3. Wisconsin needed a miracle and got from Ben Brust. Right there, just beyond the mid-court stripe, Ben Brust sinks a half-court shot to force overtime in a game that Wisconsin eventually won in overtime. Ben Brust is now a senior and is going to be playing Michigan at home for the final time, which means it's a perfect time for us to ask him to kind of relive that shot and how it propelled Wisconsin to a top 4 finish in the Big Ten for the 12th straight season under Bo Ryan.
Bruzewitz looking and looking, still looking. Inbounds pass to Brust across half court. He'll hoist one up. He hit it! Ben Brust for 3! Let's play 5 more minutes!
Obviously, you guys play Michigan this weekend, and the game here last year was probably one of your more memorable experiences. Did you look back at that moment in the offseason or think about that moment? I'm assuming not a lot, but I'm assuming that once in a while it kind of creeped into your head what you were able to kind of accomplish for this team, for this program. That was a big win for you guys last year.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely fun, but, in this league, I mean, and in just playing basketball, you got to move on to the next game and what's after that. When we celebrated, I remember I hopped over the chairs and I sat down. I was like, well, let's not just celebrate getting to overtime. Let's win the game and make it mean something, later. Because a cool shot, whatever. But you guys still lost. I want, cool shot, and we won the game, which made it, 10 times better.
What made that play work for you guys?
Just, coach making sure we're prepared in every situation. We go through a lot of different situations in practice, and, we knew when in timeout he told us what to do. We were like, okay, we've done this before, and all came together. Well, I know when I let it go that I knew it was going in. I was like, wow, that feels great. It's got a really good chance. That's going in, and then it did. So, just the catch, the dribble, got squared up, let it go. Just everything felt right. So that's all. It worked out.
We were composed. Guys never panicked. Guys didn't. A lot of times if you watch teams, it's just it's so deflating for something like that to happen. So, but you didn't see guys do that, and they came back over. We got something drawn up, and went out and were able to execute it. Of course, it helps when the shot goes in, but I think guys had belief that we would get a good shot from the time that we inbounded the ball, from the time we left the huddle. We thought we would get a good shot, and we were able to get one, and it went in.
It's just a loop we do there, and Ben was open on that last. Usually that one's the one that's open, so you put your best three-point shooter there in that situation with him in that play. And he just came around and he was open for the split second. Mike got it to him and he put it up and hits it. We've seen him hit a lot of half-court shots, so it wasn't something that was a fluke.
Well, there he is, Ben Bruss, Sam Decker, Lamont Paris, all talking about that miracle heave from half court. Very memorable, and of course, that was going against a team that would eventually play for the national championship last year, and that's who the Badgers have on Saturday as well. And Ben, this is a team that without Trey Burke, that without Mitch McGary, still has a couple of weapons that the Badgers have to be aware of, specifically when you're talking about, well, Glenn Robinson III, how about Nick Stauskas? Those guys are good. This Michigan team is still good, and they're in the lead right now for the Big Ten, tied as of this taping with Michigan State.
Yeah, 4-0 each school as the time of this taping. You kind of look at what Wisconsin is going to be facing. Same dynamic team, speed with the guards, talented roster. I mean, this is what we're going to be talking about for the Big Ten here on out, with maybe just a couple exceptions, that the Big Ten this year is really good. I mean, this next week for Wisconsin is going to be tough. You got to bounce back, come off the floor for the first time after your first loss, play a good Michigan team at home, then you go on the road to Minnesota next week, and then you go to Purdue. So it's going to be one of those things where Wisconsin doesn't have a lot of time to be wallowing in their own self-pity for giving up 52 points in the paint to Indiana. And that's something that Wisconsin will have to improve upon, obviously, going forward. And you're right, Phil. This Michigan team, very strong, very talented, despite losing some key pieces of last year's team.
From what we've seen so far of the Badgers, and again, getting ready to take on a Michigan team that has plenty of pieces, what was exposed? I mean, the defense certainly is something that you would think could be cleaned up, right? I mean, the team last year that the Badgers had, they were able to shoot 30% in a game and still win because of their defense. If they shot 40% in a game, they were winning it without a doubt. This team goes and shoots 53% at Indiana, and they lose.
Yeah, so the big thing now is defensively you have to clean things up going forward. I mean, we mentioned the second chance points and the offensive rebounds earlier, 41 against Iowa and Illinois. And while that number went down against Indiana, Indiana did miss a heck of a lot of shots. So it's really kind of hard to see, did those numbers improve dramatically from one game to the next. So certainly defensively, Wisconsin has to tighten things up. They have to have better rotations. They just need to be stronger defensively, especially in the interior of the paint. If teams beat you from the outside, so be it, but you can't give up those easy buckets to in the lane or those dunks. That's what really killed Wisconsin last night. That got the momentum back in Assembly Hall. It was just a raucous environment on Tuesday night. Wisconsin was never able to turn the tie up for that big 12-0 run because of those open layups.
All right, we'll see how ruckus the Kohl Center gets on Saturday with Michigan. When we come back, we'll wrap things up with our IBN Email of the Week. We invite you to check us out on YouTube, see some past episodes, see who the Badgers are trying to lock down as future Badgers. Just check us out, Inside Badger Nation, all you have to look up. Plus, follow us on Twitter as well, @InBadgerNation, to keep up to date with the program, and email the program, InsideBadgerNation@gmail.com. We have our Email of the Week each and every week, and it's brought to us by 608 Restaurant and Bar. It's 212 State Street, where 608 is more than just an area code. Let's get to our question. It's courtesy of Mike in Wanakee. He said, hey guys, I want to know, is this the best Badger basketball team Coach Bo Ryan has ever coached? Well, they've off to the best start, and I don't know. I think the one thing for me, and really for all of the teams in NCAA, your final product, what you're judged on at the end of the day, is what you do in the tournament. That's what you're judged on, what happens in March. This certainly has some of the most talent in recent memory, but I don't think we can make that assessment yet. And the teams that have gone furthest under Bo Ryan, you got one Elite Eight appearance, got a couple of Sweet 16s, and last year, the team that had beaten the most ranked teams among all NCAA teams, at least tied for the most wins against ranked teams, they were a first-round exit. So as good as these teams have been overall, the best team to me is the one that got the farthest, and we'll see if this team can get the farthest. And for me, Ben, too, the Big Ten tournament title, a Big Ten regular season title, that all plays into it. But that's all just the preseason until the real deal starts in March.
Yeah, I think what this team does in March will really kind of determine where this legacy of this team is going to be. And Phil, you mentioned a lot of good teams. You didn't mention the 06-07 team that got to #1 in the country.
Sure.
You didn't mention the 07-08 team that won 31 games and swept the Big Ten regular season and tournament championship. So there's been a lot of good teams that Bo Ryan has coached over the years, and I kind of wanted to see that 06-07 team healthy if Brian Butch didn't dislocate his elbow at Ohio State. That team could have done a lot of good things in the month of March. But if this team stays healthy, if they fix up a couple of things we've been addressing in this episode so far with the rebounding and the points in the paint and different things like that, bench production too has got to get better. This team has the potential to win a Big Ten title, has the potential to make a run in March. But until they do it, I think it's really hard to kind of quantify how good this team is. Obviously 16-0 at the time, best run in school history. Now 16-1. Well, how are they going to play against Michigan? What are they going to do next week? I mean, there's a realistic possibility this team could be 16-4 next time because of just how tough the Big Ten is. And so until we see more of this team, until they play Michigan State and Ohio State at home, I think we really aren't quite sure how good this team is. But they are very good.
Yeah, and they can score. That's what I think some people get really excited about. Got a lot of different pieces that can put it up and in. All right, let's get to our IBN's Most Wanted this week. Who do we got? Bow, 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 bow. Cornelius Sturgill from Memphis, Tennessee. Did I say that right?
You did. It's kind of a surprise offer. This offer came late for Wisconsin, just in the past week. And Wisconsin, we've talked about on the show, they need cornerbacks. And as you can see, position cornerback. I mean, we saw what happened in the Capital One Bowl with Wisconsin. We saw what happened in the Penn State game. This is some film of him as a wide receiver, but you still can make the connection of how well he plays, how well his hand-eye coordination is, how well he moves. Just Wisconsin needs speed and athleticism in their secondary. This is certainly a good option for the Badgers. He's going to come on an official visit on January 31st. This will be important for Wisconsin to kind of find some guys who can fit in this class. Chris Lamons is a guy, too. We've talked about him before, a 4-star guy who's committed to Florida, has since decommitted, but since is looking hard at South Carolina and at Florida State. Wisconsin's in the mix, but you just kind of feel that it's going to be South Carolina's guy to lose. DeAndre Porter's another guy we've talked about. He's going to visit on the 24th, but he's also in the past week picked up offers from Miami and Florida, so he might be a tough pull out of the Sunshine State. So Sturgill might be the guy for Wisconsin to be that cornerback in this class and really kind of solidify some depth there. Wisconsin needs a little bit of good news, especially since Rohan Blackwood in the past week decommitted. Blackwood was been a member of this recruiting class for a long period of time. We are told maybe some academic issues, but he's going to be looking at Marshall and South Florida. Maybe he comes back to Wisconsin, but probably not.
All right, that's going to do it for us. We'll see you next week right here on Inside Badger Nation.